Eternals is the 25th entry in the MCU and is directed by Chloe Zhao, fresh off her win for Best Director and Best Picture for Nomadland. The film follows the Eternals Cersei, Icarus, Athena, Ajax, Kingo, Gilgamesh, Phastos, Makari, Druig, and Sprite as they influence humanity's growth in preparation for their leader, the Celestial known as Arishem. However, this all goes astray when they discover Arishem's master plan and grapple with following orders or doing what they feel is right. Going into the movie, I had some pretty high expectations because of Chloe Zhao, and I think she delivered fairly well whenever the movie was Chloe Zhao. I wouldn't call this the best MCU entry, but it's not the worst. I would consider this to be a top 15 of the MCU. Chloe Zhao does a really great job of juggling all the characters to a certain extent and bring out the humanity within these godlike characters. She clearly defines all the characters and their motivations except for maybe Sprite. I think that because there are so many Eternals though, some of them are wasted, especially the ones played by big names, such as Angelina Jolie's Athena, Don Lee's Gilgamesh, and Salma Hayek's Ajax. These are phenomenal actors and they were just severely underutilized in this movie. Hopefully Athena plays a larger role later in the MCU because Angelina Jolie fits the role really well and she fully embraces the action sequences. Whenever I see Angelina Jolie on screen, I can't help but think of her early days as Lara Croft, this action hero Angelina Jolie. I really wish they embraced this a little bit more and gave her more to do with her runtime. And, of course, not only is she great at action sequences, but she's Angelina Jolie, one of the greatest actresses of our age. So I know for a fact that she can take Athena's character to new heights. My top 3 Eternals, though, are Druig, Phastos, and Makari. Druig is such a contrast to the rest of the Eternals in his motivations. To see him wanting to just do what's right and intervening with the human race from the very beginning, instead of sticking to the mission, was not what I was expecting. In the comics, he's kind of the outcast of the group. He is more rage-filled, which he still is very much angry at the Eternals in this movie, but it's more so embraced and kind of given a negative connotation in the comics. His comic character reminds me a lot of Raphael from the Ninja Turtles. Eternals is also, at least for me, the most visually beautiful MCU. Filming on location really does make a difference in the look of these movies. I hope more MCU movies start to utilize this whenever they can. Instead of relying too heavily on VFX, I think the VFX in the MCU is really well done overall. There's just a difference in the color palette that this movie has, mostly due to them shooting on location, and it gives it a more cinematic feel. However, I know that most MCU movies do have really great VFX, and I think there's a couple exceptions to this, a couple rough patches within each individual movie, but I think the VFX in this movie was very shaky. The deviants looked great, the superpowers were really great. There was one scene with Icarus where you could tell it was VFX and it looked a little rough around the edges, almost a little incomplete. The Celestials of Arishem was mind-blowing. They made him look gigantic. They made him look intimidating. That was some of the best VFX I have seen in a while. But the VFX really does shine through towards the end of the movie when they clearly did the scenes in studio and not on location. You can see the green screen behind Cersei. You can see the green screen behind Icarus. And I get it. It was a very VFX-heavy finale. But I just wish it was a little more well done. I know Marvel can do a lot better than that. I've seen Marvel do a lot better than that. I really wish they had came through in this final act. My biggest issue with the movie is the convoluted plots. There's so much going on each second of the movie and each scene. The audience isn't given any time to breathe and take in what is happening. One moment it's exposition, the next action sequences, and then back to more exposition. It's disorienting at times and overwhelming, which I do not think was purposefully done. I think it was just a result of having too many plots. And you can tell that they were trying to sort of let's take a break, but it wasn't it wasn't done well enough to the point where you're able to fully understand, and sometimes something would happen on screen and I was a little confused, and I have background on these characters, but even then I was still confused just because of how there's just too much going on to the point where you just kind of like zone out. His name, it was Crow or Core, something like that. No, it started with a K. I remember the imagery, but that's about it. I don't remember what exactly is going on, what exactly it has to do with the plot. It just comes out of nowhere. It feels like it was added in to create action sequences during the movie. I also think the major plot twist of Icarus betraying the Eternals should have been shored down a lot. I think they should have just kept it separate. They should have saved Icarus for the very end, because it kind of throws out all the tension towards the end. It's just, oh, Icarus versus this, and then you've got this going on, and then, oh, here's also the deviants. There's just too much going on to really get immersed into each actual subplot, because one moment you're in one, and then you're taken out, transported to the next subplot. There's too much going on. I think, as I mentioned, I think it would have heightened the stakes, and it would have helped make Icarus a little more compelling, because I would have gotten to know this guy just a little bit more. Overall, I enjoyed Eternals. It's not a bad movie. It's a decent movie. I enjoyed it mostly because of its visual elements and the quieter, intimate moments in between the action sequences. It's clearly at its best whenever Chloe Zhao is fully embracing what she does as a director. When she's fully embracing the movie and doing what she does best and just focusing on the human nature and intimacy of the Eternals between each other. But when it goes for the epic scale of the MCU, it becomes a mess. Chloe Zhao opens the door for future MCU movies to feel more cinematic and intimate. She doesn't quite stick the landing to truly push MCU movies into uncharted waters. Overall, I would give Eternals a 65 out of 100. Now, on to the post-credit scene. The first post-credit scene introduces the MCU to Star Fox, aka Eros, the brother of Thanos, played by none other than Harry Styles. I think Harry Styles is a great choice for Star Fox. I was a little hesitant, but he fits the role. Given the characters, especially given the character status as very much a ladies' man, so Star Fox has, his power is sort of mind manipulation to a certain extent, but he can trigger the pleasure aspect of a brain, so his powers are very sexual in nature. So I think the actor who needs to play Star Fox needs to be extremely attractive, and he needs to be charming, which Harry Styles fits that idea, especially now. Not sure about the acting ability of Harry Styles yet. I haven't seen enough to really determine how great of an actor he is. I haven't seen anything with him outside of Dunkirk. I don't think he's really done anything outside of Dunkirk. He was great in that movie, though, and I trust Chloe Zhao, and if she picked him from the role, then I'm sure he'll do great. I was extremely excited for Dane Whitman's character, so the second one really grabbed me. We see Dane with the ebony blade about to wield it. I don't know too much about Black Knight, though. I know a general history of the character, but have not read every single comic with him or that many comics with him. That being said, I was really excited for his character because he's a key aspect in defeating King the Conqueror in the comics, and King seems to be being set up as the big bad of the MCU, similar to Thanos. He's also a deeper dive into the fantasy aspect of Marvel, which would include characters like Ghost Rider, Moon Knight, Blade, and many more. So seeing Black Knight teased got me extremely excited because his inclusion hints at a catalog of characters that are being introduced in the MCU in the near future, such as Mahershala Ali's Blade and Oscar Isaac's Moon Knight. Still no update on a possible Ghost Rider project. What really got me, though, was the voice that speaks to him. The voice I originally thought was maybe Nick Fury. Some people were speculating King the Conqueror, which I didn't think it was King. I thought it was Nick Fury. I wasn't really sure who else it could be, but Chloe Zhao and Kumail Nanjiani have reportedly revealed it to be Mahershala Ali's Blade. Thanks for watching. My next video will be coming out next Wednesday, where I review Tick Tick Boom starring Andrew Garfield and give my brief thoughts on Clifford the Big Red Dog and Home Sweet Home Alone.